The United States empire and Israel's war of aggression against Iran is now a month old, and it has only escalated over the course of the month. A devastating war led by two madmen, Trump.
Does anybody recognize this man?
And Netanyahu. Both of these monsters have expressed their desire for NATO countries like Canada to join the conflict.
NATO's making a very foolish mistake, and I've long said that, I wonder whether or not NATO would ever be there for us. So this was a great test, because we don't need them, but they should have been there.
Trump and Netanyahu are begging Canada to join World War Epstein.
And it's time to see the leaders of the rest of the countries join up.
Will Canada join the war against Iran? Canada's potential participation is very important. We must also remember that at the heart of this are the victims of these ongoing crimes. Millions of people have been displaced, tens of thousands have been injured, and thousands murdered. Iranians, Lebanese, and Palestinians have been the primary victims of this conflict. But there is pain on all sides. We must not forget about the victims and the collective pain that America and Israel have brought upon them. Will Canada join the war against Iran? According to the Defense Minister of Canada, maybe.
So Canada's looking at the options, what we can or cannot contribute. That's something that we're dialoguing with our counterparts about. So yes, there are options on the table: vessels, demining expertise, intelligence, cyber capacities. These are all on the table as we share this know-how with our counterparts to see what is the best way to go forward. How can we be of assistance if we are of assistance? This is predicated on the notion that there will be a ceasefire. Otherwise, it may amount to being involved in the prosecution of the war.
On the condition of a ceasefire, of course. We'll get back to that. Essentially, Canada is currently in the stage of military preparation, figuring out what kind of equipment and expertise they may send to the Middle East on the side of America and Israel. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video.
So one can never categorically rule out participation. We will stand by our allies.
The first day of the war, Prime Minister Carney announced Canada's support for the aggression against Iran.
Canada supports the United States acting to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon and to prevent its regime from further threatening international peace and security.
Carney made clear on day one that he is staying with the Epstein class, U.S. empire, and Israel.
And we reaffirm Israel's right to defend itself.
He revised this position a couple days later to regrettably supporting America and Israel in their war of aggression.
We support efforts to prevent Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon and to prevent its regime from further threatening international peace and security. We do, however, take this position with regret because the current conflict is another example of the failure of the international order.
By Mark Carney's own assessment, says is against international law.
Prima facie, it appears that these actions are inconsistent with international law.
Canada's Prime Minister's stated position is regrettably supporting a criminal war of aggression. The Carney government has been mostly consistent on one point, and that is Iran bad.
Not fair to your colleagues, but I would take up all the remaining time in this press conference times 10 if I went through the serial violations of international law by the Islamic Republic of Iran. This is a regime that is the biggest exporter of terror in the world.
Iran bad.
Canada has long seen Iran as the principal source of instability and terror in the Middle East. The Islamic Republic of Iran is the principal source of instability and terror throughout the Middle East. It has one of the world's worst human rights records.
He always spins it back to Iran bad, essentially victim blaming. Mark Carney whitewashes and ignores the crimes of the U.S. empire and Israel. This is the same guy that said he supported the war of aggression on day one after America blew up a school full of children in the town of Minab. But remember, Iran bad. He's against Iran and he's in favor of America and Israel. Government officials have said repeatedly that
Canada was not consulted about the decision to attack Iran. Canada is not participating and will not participate in the offensive actions in that region.
and they've also called for de-escalation and a ceasefire. Canada is considering sending military assets, including ships, to the Strait of Hormuz.
So yes, there are options on the table: vessels, demining expertise, intelligence, cyber capacities. These are all on the table as we share this know-how with our counterparts to see what is the best way to go forward. How can we be of assistance?
This would be a colossal disaster for Canada and Canadians. Sending a military vessel to the Strait of Hormuz is an inherently offensive military posturing. The vessels aren't defending Canada or Canada's interests. They would be going to support America and Israel's war of aggression. An important reminder on Mark Carney is that throughout his tenure as Prime Minister of Canada, he has continued to materially support Israel's and apartheid of Palestinians. Canada is buying and selling military equipment to Israel. The Liberal government just voted to keep a loophole open that allows Canadian military arms and equipment to be sent to Israel to be used against Israel's enemies. And Mark Carney considers himself a Zionist.
A Zionist, if you will, Palestinian state that recognizes the right of Israel to exist.
Only a Zionist could demand a Zionist Palestine. So let's remember that Mark Carney has chosen which side he is on. Team Epstein class. So in some ways, Canada has already joined the war by supporting America and Israel materially and politically. Here's how Canada could end up joining the war. Let's assume a ceasefire begins. Canada sends military vessels, equipment, personnel to the Middle East under the claim of wanting to protect international waterways and defend shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. Putting Canadian military vessels in the strait is clearly a prerequisite and an escalation towards Canada joining the war. I've got some news for chatters. America and Israel are literally top tier at violating ceasefires. They're actually the best. The world has witnessed this time and time again. Like 8 months ago, America and Israel bombed Iran in the 12-day war, and that was under the pretense of negotiations. A ceasefire without addressing American and Israeli aggression is simply a countdown to war breaking out again. Essentially, in this case, Canada would be sending vessels during a cool-off period, and then America and Israel would attack again. Because that's what they do. Canadian military vessels and personnel could potentially become viable military targets and force Canada to be belligerent in America's aggression. Prior to this war, ships were already passing through the Strait of Hormuz, and as a matter of fact, they're currently going through the Strait of Hormuz. Iran has essentially closed the strait to their enemies like the USA and Israel. Now, what I would put forth is, instead of sending Canadian military to go and forcefully escort ships through it, how about simply coordinate with the Iranian government to allow for safe passage? They could just keep the shit flowing just by talking with the Iranian government. Simply follow the Tehran-approved route. Canada, however, is considering not doing that, and as a matter of fact, sending military to Iranian territorial waters. The fact that ships are going through right now shows that safe travel and passage is currently viable. It's possible. So the only point of sending military vessels is to escalate and expand the war to include the Canadian military. Sending Canadian vessels would be a massive escalation and grossly unpopular in Canada. Nobody wants anything to do with Israel's war of aggression that has disrupted the entire global economy and displaced millions. Now, in my opinion, this is clearly a bait by Trump and Netanyahu to drag Canada and other NATO countries into the war of aggression. And it sounds like Mark Carney is preparing to take the bait.
So one can never categorically rule out participation. We will stand by our allies.
Canada should have no role in this operation. This is America and Israel's war. The U.S.-Israeli war of aggression against Iran has completely devastated global energy, logistics, and production. Simply put, there is less oil going around the world, so we, even in Canada, are about to experience a catastrophic energy and inflation crisis that some experts are saying will be the worst ever. That's coming no matter what. Even in the event of a ceasefire, the crisis is still coming. We've just begun to feel the effects of the war against Iran. There are a lot more inflationary things coming down the pipeline. Food, fuel, it's all going to be more expensive. Spending more money and Canadians' resources to assist in the aggression against Iran is lighting money on fire. Spending insane amounts of money and resources to militarily escort shipping is doubling down on a failed strategy from a war of aggression, i.e. expensive as f***. Carney has blown a ton of Canadians' resources into Canada's NATO-style military, all at the expense of the working-class Canadians by stealing their resources, cutting back on necessary programs through austerity. Military spending is at the expense of working-class and marginalized people in Canada.
Yeah, raising VAT, cutting VAT, raising interest rates.
Raising interest rates and VAT, lowering income tax and raising VAT.
None of it seems to really help.
Have you tried kill all the poor?
And now that Canada has spent a shitload of money on the military, and more to come, Mark Carney's incentivized to use it. So this is why he's openly considering sending Canadian military personnel and equipment to the Middle East to help support America and Israel's war of aggression.
So one can never categorically rule out participation. We will stand by our allies.
This immediately puts lives at risk simply by their presence, even in the event of a ceasefire. Canada should not try to be the world police or the mini world police or America Light. Canada gets no benefit from this. It will only further victimize people across the world. The American empire is dying, and Israel is loathed by the vast majority of Canadians. Carney supporting these rogue states would further attach and integrate Canada with the dying U.S. empire at such a critical crossroads. Mark Carney is loaded. He has at least $10 million. The cartoon depiction of a global international CEO world banker elite.
Hello, I like money.
What inspired you to build a second Krusty Krab right next door to the original?
Money.
Mark Carney, first and foremost, serves the interest of capital. He serves the capital-owning class, which happens to also correspond with the capital-owning class interests in America. The fine tightrope walk of supporting the fascist American empire and America's fascist puppet state Israel with the hard reality of everybody hates America and Israel and their actions in the Middle East. When it comes down to it, Mark Carney will stand with the side of capital, and in this case, that means supporting America and Israel's war of aggression against Iran. So will Canada join the war on Iran? Maybe, possibly. They've kept the door open. I sincerely hope not. Time will tell. At the heart of this discussion are the victims. The victims of American empire and Israeli aggression. Essentially where we're at is the war is ongoing, escalating. Mark Carney is considering sending military to the region on the side of America and Israel, the Epstein class side. Those are my current thoughts on the chance that Canada joins the war against Iran. Peace and love. Take care, everyone. Until next time, bye-bye.